For the record, my name is Henry Santana, City Councilor at Large, and I am the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Public Safety and Criminal Justice. Today is October 8th, 2024. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live-streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcasted on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, Files Channel 964. Written comments may be sent to the committee email at ccc.ps@boston.gov and will be made part of the record and available to all councilors. Public testimony will be taken at the end of this hearing. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. If you are interested in testifying in person, please add your name to the sign-up sheet near the entrance of the chamber. If you are looking to testify virtually, please email our Central Staff Liaison, Shane Pack, at shane.pack@boston.gov for the link, and your name will be added to the list. Today's hearing is on 8 public safety grants, all administered by the Boston Police Department. Docket number 0911, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expand the amount of $10,000 in the form of a grant for the FY24 earmarked for Fairmont Housing Development, awarded by the MA Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund the support of police overtime for visible patrols in the Fairmont development. This matter was sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on June 5th, 2024. Docket number 1166, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expand of $4,125,000 grant for the FY25 Public Safety Answering Point Support of Incentive Grant awarded by the MA Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund costs associated with providing enhanced 911 services. Docket number 1168, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expand the amount of $850,000, in the form of a grant for the FY24 Boston Regional Intelligence Center earmark awarded by the MA Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund upgrading, expanding, and integrating technology and protocols related to anti-terrorism, anti-crime, and anti-gang and anti-emergency response. Docket number 1170, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expand the amount of $445,865.77 in the form of a grant for the FY25 State 911 Training Grant awarded by the MA Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund the training and certification of enhanced 911 telecommunication staff. Docket number 1175, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expand the amount of $87,427 in the form of a grant for the United States Attorney's Project Safe Neighborhood Initiative Grant awarded by the United States Attorney's Office, passed through the MA Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund the purchase of needed equipment, software, and other technology items considered vital for preventing or reducing violent crime. Docket number 1177, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expand the amount of $10,000 in the form of a grant for the FY23 National Violent Death Reporting System awarded by the MA Department of Public Health to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund data collection by the Bureau of Investigative Services and the Drug Control Unit. These 5 matters were sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on August 7th, 2024. Docket number 1286, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expand $11,200 in the form of a grant for the FY23 Safe and Successful Youth Initiative awarded by the MA Executive Office of Health and Human Services to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund to support the enrollment in a Certificate of Intensive Training and Motivational Interviewing for the SSYI Boston Case Management Team. This matter was sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on August 28, 2024. And lastly, docket number 1432, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expand $175,000 in the form of a grant for the FY24 Police Reform and Equitable Justice Grant Program awarded by the Target Corporation to be administered by the Police Department. The grant will fund the Youth and Police Initiative, which provides police with the skills and tools necessary to understand and deal with troubled youth and give troubled youth new ways to understand, perceive, and deal with police authority. This matter was sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on September 25, 2024. Today, I am joined by my colleagues in order of arrival: Councilor Ed Flynn, Councilor Erin Murphy, Council President Rusi Lujan. Before we begin, I'd like to just ask folks to please silence their phones and devices. I'm sure all my colleagues are interested in learning more about these 8 grants, and we have a lot of information to cover and panelists to hear from. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to waive opening remarks and jump right into opening remarks from our panelists on each of these grants so we can reserve more time for questions from my colleagues. To reduce confusion and provide more opportunity for discussion, we'll cover the 8 grants in 2 groups of 4, including opening remarks from our panelists and 2 rounds of questions from my colleagues, and then we will continue with the other 4 dockets. The committee has been informed that Superintendent Kulien and Director Walsh have hard stops at 12 p.m. I don't think that will be an issue, but just to be safe, our first group of dockets will include those that they'll speak on. Our first panel will be on dockets number 1168, docket number 1432, docket number 1175, and docket number 1286. At this time, I'd like to provide an overview of the panelists the committee invited for our first panel, and please be seated at the panel table if you're not already. Ryan Walsh, who's the director of Boston Regional Intelligence Center; Lanita Kulien, superintendent of Bureau of Field Services; Jay Paris, founder, Youth Police Initiative; Sean Romanowski, director of telecommunications; Sergeant Detective Philip M. Bissonette, Fugitive Apprehension Unit; and Frank DeLuca, Program Coordinator, Safe and Successful Youth Initiative. For the panelists who are here today, I'll ask each of you to just state your name for the record, and then please proceed with opening remarks. I just kindly ask that in order to allow time for councilor questions and discussion, that you please limit your opening statements to 5 minutes per grant. And I ask you to please remind everyone on the docket number and dollar amount of the grant as you begin your remarks. With that, please proceed with the opening remarks for the following dockets. Thank you. Anyone can start.
Good morning, Councilor. No real opening remarks for the BRIC grant. This is a continuation of the funding that was approved last year that we're using mostly for personnel to kind of enhance several different parts of the office. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good morning, Councilor.
Good morning.
So in terms of the...
I'm sorry, can we just introduce our just for the record as well? So
yes. Lanita Cullinane, Superintendent, Boston Police Department. Thank you. And this is relative to the Youth Police Initiative partnership with the North American Family Institute. And I will start by saying that the Boston Police Department will work with NAFI, which is the North American Family Institute, to create and implement YPI, which is the Youth Police Initiative. And for Boston's most vulnerable neighborhoods in year one. By vulnerable, we are referring to those areas that have gang violence or their existing conditions of poverty, gang activity, housing instability, food insecurity, and other risk factors. These neighborhoods include areas in East Boston, which is District 7, 3 housing developments, Orchard Gardens in Roxbury, which is District 2, Franklin Field, which is in Mattapan, District 3, and then the Mildred Haley development, which is in Jamaica Plain, District 13. I'm going to briefly turn it over to Jay so that he can speak some more to this initiative, and then I'll follow up.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jay Paris, and I'm with the Youth Police Initiative program. Basically, the program is a 2-week interactive scenario-based training that brings together 15 teenagers at a time. It's an after-school prevention program. And in the course of the 2 weeks, they have 6 meetings, 2.5 hours each. And at 3 of those meetings, they're joined by patrol officers from the neighborhoods that they live in. And the idea is that they get a chance to break down the stereotypes they have that are out there, that they get to a point, and is highly structured to do this, to be able to get into some deeper discussions about the kinds of challenges the teenagers are facing, but also the police are facing. And they also get a chance to hear each other's stories about some choices they've made. The kids are preparing that for several days and practicing it, and when the police officers join them for the last 3 sessions, there's a point where the officers are asked if they would be willing to share how they went from being teenagers to becoming police officers. And one of the kind of secret sauces of this thing is that the kids have this dramatic awareness of how much they have in common with police officers and what they can share. And so it really gets more down to the sort of humanity that exists out there, and we have found that it's very effective in not only breaking down these stereotypes, but being able to have some of the deeper discussions that are important about things like social media, what some of the challenges are in the ways that police patrol, and I think through extensive amount of independent evaluations, we found that there's a real shift in attitudes towards each other, and also we've seen that play out in behavior over a period of time. So the only other component I would add is that this is meant to be a train the trainer program. This is done over 2 years. So in the first year, besides operating 4 of these cohorts, so 60 young people and about 30 officers participating in year 1, we'll be training 6 to 8 folks to become trainers to continue the training. And in year 2, they will then implement 6 more trainings, and we'll monitor that and do some quality assurance study of how they're doing and making sure that it's working out well. So altogether, there'll be 150 young people who will go through the training and something like 70 to 80 officers, we figure, and they'll be a nice cadre of trainers in Boston to continue this.
And I think that the bedrock or the foundation of this is trust and building relationships and two-way communication, which is often something that we don't see with these 2 groups of individuals. So officers often think that, youth are not listening to them, and vice versa. And so it just creates that ability to have a forum in which we can kind of break down barriers, have some real conversations. And we've seen that these type of programs in the past have been very beneficial to creating and fostering relationships between officers and the youth that are in the community.
I think that's it. Unless,
And that covers all 4 of those dockets?
So,
Or is there anyone else?
Good morning, councilors. Thank you. My name is Frank DeLuca. I'm working in the Research and Development Office at the Boston Police Department, where I am the SSYI Program Coordinator and Law Enforcement Lead. SSYI is a youth violence prevention program exclusively funded by the state's Executive Office of Health and Human Services. The program focuses on young adults ages 17 to 24 who are identified as proven risk, meaning they're most likely to be perpetrators or victims of shooting or stabbing violence. Since 2011, the Boston Police Department, representing the City of Boston and acting as grantee, has partnered with the program lead agency, the Boston Public Health Commission, to provide a combined public safety, public health approach to eliminate youth violence in the city. SSYI case management team provided by the Health Commission coordinates with community organizations to offer participants a continuum of intervention services, including outreach, intensive case management, education, employment and occupational training, and behavioral health counseling. Through these services, SSYI introduces participants to an alternative pro-social lifestyle, helping them to abandon that of continually contributing to street violence. So now Boston's been awarded an additional $11,200 from the state to pay for enrollment in their Certificate of Intensive Training and Motivational Interviewing offered by the University of Massachusetts Chan Medical School for our SSYI case management team. The cost of the training is $1,600 per person, and all 7 members of the case management team will enroll in the evidence-based program. I hope and I strongly urge the council will accept these funds in an effort to advocate for the ongoing improvement of our case management team. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we need someone to speak on 1175.
I'm not sure if that's the, I didn't write down the number, but this is Project Safe Neighborhood Initiative Law Enforcement Equipment and Technology Grant Program. The funding agency is Mass U.S. Attorney's Office.
Correct. For
The Boston, thank you. So the Boston Police Department, the Bureau of Field Services, and the Bureau of Administration and Technology is looking to purchase surveillance cameras to operate within our existing camera network to place in our top 3 highest violent crime police districts, which are Area B, District 2 and 3, which include Roxbury and Mattapan, and Area C, which is District 11, Dorchester. These cameras will help the police department prevent property and violent crimes as well as investigate crimes that have taken place. In addition, the Bureau of Field Services is looking to provide districts with tactical protective shields to assist with de-escalation skills and techniques in the neighborhoods of Boston. De-escalation is a skill and a technique that we use on a daily basis. Sometimes these skills and techniques need to be supplemented with equipment, and we feel that tactical shields will both serve as a de-escalation tool as well as a protective piece of equipment for law enforcement. Finally, Bureau of Investigative Services is looking to support the Fugitive Apprehension Unit, which needs software, database subscriptions, night vision equipment, and other equipment such as iPads and body armor upgrades. In order to work with both internal and external law enforcement partners to apprehend Massachusetts and Boston's most dangerous offenders. These items will enable the Fugitive Apprehension Unit to assist with coordinated efforts that focus on criminal and transnational organizations involved in high levels of violence, firearm offenses, sex trafficking, and drug trafficking. And there are other individuals on the panel that will be able to answer specific questions relative to this, the request for these grant funds. Thank you.
There's other panelists
For this specific one, yes. That's
okay. Okay, great. So I'm going to move now. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to hand it forward now to my colleagues in order of arrival. Before I do that, I just want to, for those 4 dockets that we just overviewed, everyone can answer questions on this, or if you're not going to answer questions on these 4 dockets, I just ask if you can step back, just so that way we know, for the counselors to know who to direct questions to. And just before that, I know we had 4 individuals introduce themselves. Can we just have the other 4 individuals just introduce themselves and titles?
Sure. Good morning, Councilors. Sergeant Detective Philip Bissonnette. I'm the commander of the Boston Police Fugitive Unit. Thank you.
Good morning. Carmen Curry, Deputy Superintendent, Commander of the Operations Division.
Good morning. Sean Romanowski, Boston Police Telecommunications Director.
Good morning. Christopher Markunis, Director of the Operations Division, Boston Police Department.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. Like I said, I'd like to hand the floor over now to my colleagues in order of arrival. I'd like to ask my colleagues to limit the time of your initial questions to 7 minutes per counselor, including panelist responses. With that, I believe Councilor Ed Flynn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the panel for being here, for the important work you are doing in the city. Superintendent, I was trying to get cameras in Mary Ellen McCormick project, public housing development. I know that was not listed, but that was a priority I had. I was working with Superintendent COO. Are we able to factor that development in when you do make the decisions for the cameras?
So we do have a list of requests from the districts regarding cameras and their placement. I know that John Romanowski is here from telecommunications, so he speaks specifically with the district captains about the placement of those cameras, so he may be able to speak a little more to that. Thank you.
Excellent.
Good morning, Councilor.
Good morning.
Sean Romanowski, Boston Police Telecommunications. We have been working since 2011 to increase the coverage around the city. However, with limited funding, we work with the BRIC and the districts, and we identify the highest crime areas, and we usually use that as the criteria for where the cameras go next. There are exceptions to that where the cameras are paid for locally by an entity. Then, if we receive a letter of grant or a letter of reward, they go in as specified. But typically, it's a needs-based or crime-based initiative that determines where each camera is placed.
Yeah, I just want to focus and stress, if I can, on Mary Ellen McCormick, but also on Andrew Square area as well. Andrew Square is the closest MBTA stop to the Mass and Cass area. I know that there's an increase in drug trafficking and violence in that area, but this is something I have talked to Captain Boyle, I have talked to the superintendent COO. But is this something, Superintendent, we can have a follow-up conversation later this week?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay. Thank you. My other question would be relating to the outreach that you're doing to young people across the city. I know I haven't heard that plan, but can you give us a little bit of background on that communication you are doing with young people, how this funds, how the funding will be used to kind of engage young people about healthy lifestyles, I guess?
This is a specific program, and I can let Mr. Paris talk about it a little more, but this is a specific program. But we do have a lot of outreach efforts throughout the city through the CSO offices, the community service offices, as well as the Bureau of Community Engagement, and additionally officers that are just in the district. So we do have a number of programs that are currently in place. I can get you a list of those programs if you'd like, but this specifically focuses on the partnership with NAFI, and I will let Mr. Farris just talk a little more about that.
Yes, Councilor Flynn. So the idea is to to engage 15 teenagers who are more on the margin or on sort of on the bubble of being at risk for gang involvement or negative interactions with authority, police in particular. Three of the 4 areas that have been targeted are in housing developments: Mildred Haley, Franklin Field, and Orchard Gardens. The 4th is East Boston, and I think that decision was just based on need. Our approach is to make sure that these 15 kids at a time, 150 total over 2 years, will complete the program, and we'll measure the outcomes to see how well their attitudes towards police change, attitudes toward authority, and their willingness to trust these adults, in the sense, go to them if they feel there's a need to do that, and have positive interactions. So it really is around that. We have found in studying this that there's kind of an interesting ripple effect, because in the youth culture, you know, the word travels like fire, and that we found that when you get 15, 20, 30 kids from a neighborhood who have gone through this experience, that, you know, in the families and the siblings and the friends, it really can have impact. So that's really what we're trying to do.
Thank you. I represent the South End and active with this group called St. Stephen's Youth Group, as you probably know. But this youth group does a lot of work in Villa Victoria. Across the street is Cathedral, public housing. Down the road, not too far, is Roxbury. But is there an opportunity to get this youth group involved in this process?
I think the goal is always to look at how we can expand programs. You generally start with a pilot for most type of programs, and you figure out in those times what works, what doesn't work, and then you try to fashion it and then make it much broader. So I think that we're always looking for the opportunity to expand and look at other communities where we can implement this type of program. So I would say, yes, there's an opportunity to have those conversations as well.
If I could just add, Councilor Flynn, that in the second year, there are going to be 6 additional trainings, and I don't know that those have been assigned to any place, and that might be a great time to really think about that. Villa Victoria in particular, I think.
Yeah, Villa Victoria, Cathedral, and down the road, obviously, Roxbury, but Castle Square is not too far, so there's a lot of kids in need that could benefit from it, but also, you know, if there's an opportunity to do some work in the public housing developments in South Boston also. I represent the largest number of residents living in public housing of any district council, so I want to make sure that my constituents also can benefit from these programs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Erin Murphy?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here. Deputy Superintendent Curry, I guess in the next round, because I was happy to see that there's money coming to 911 services, but we haven't spoke about them yet. So, but with the, to piggyback on what Councilor Flynn was talking about, excited about these youth partnerships. And when you talked about the relationship with the offices, I mean, I think of Joshua Della Rosa, who, you know, talks about his upbringing. I know that, God rest his soul, Richie Lito had a great relationship in the South End and would often talk to kids about, you know, his upbringing, living in the projects, kind of connecting. So excited and hoping that we can continue to grow that. Is there a partnership with Youth Connect and Kevin Barton, or what is your partnership with BPS? Like, how do we find and choose the children, the young adults who are part in these programs?
I think we're still in the developmental phase of this. We'll be working with the Boston Police Academy and the Bureau of Community Engagement, and they will assist us in identifying youth that would be appropriate to be involved with this program.
Okay, so we haven't chosen them yet, right? So we'll.
No.
Okay. No. But that's good. And I do just also want to highlight what Councilor Flynn said about the Mary Ellen McCormick and the Andrew Square. Since the tent encampments came down, I know we see other pockets growing also, but definitely there's been an increase in that area in the Mary Ellen McCormick housing development and definitely in Andrew Square. So if we could focus on that, that'd be great. But other than that, happy, always happy when there's grants coming in, and any time we can, you know, do training and expand with our youth, it's great. So thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. This time I'd like to acknowledge that we've been joined by District Councilor Brian Worrell. Council President Rusu Lijen, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everyone for being with us this morning and for the work that you do for our city. I also have questions about how our young people are selected, and I take the answer from you, Jay Paris, and from Superintendent, that work is going to be done alongside. I'm sure Nora will do a great job, Superintendent Basson will do a great job at helping you identify. SSYI is more of an established program that we have. If we could speak to how we identify the young people who are proven risks in that 17 to 24 age range, I'm curious to learn what that looks like.
SSYI receives, or the Boston Police as the administrative overseer, receives referrals from our law enforcement partners. For instance, the Suffolk County House of Correction, the Department of Correction, Nashua Street Jail, Massachusetts Probation, but also within the police department, the Youth Violence Strike Force, or the district captains. So referrals will come in to me, and I will forward them to our data analyst, who will review them to make sure that they qualify for the program.
And how long is the program, and what does it?
It's an ongoing program.
Okay.
But there are age limits, 17 to 24-year-olds, so many age out.
And what do participants or enrollees, what do they receive as part of the program?
Intervention services, those being intensive case management, education services, behavioral health services, and employment and occupational training.
Who does the intensive case management?
The Boston Public Health Commission.
Awesome.
We have
Yeah,
a
you
team
mentioned that.
of,
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's a great model. So thank you.
Sure.
I'm excited to see the further investments in 911 operations. Chris, I know that you and your team over there, it's incredibly important. And I know that Rep. Consalvo has been doing a lot of advocacy around the issues in the Fairmont, so I know that he's for that as well. My next questions are for Director Walsh. I thank you for, my team and I had a great visit a few weeks ago to the Brick, and talked about Brick, talked about ShotSpotter. It was a very informative meeting, and I want to thank you for your time and how you were always providing information and always, I think, clear on when things are, what is and isn't possible. You stated that the majority of the money for this grant, but it's $850,000, is for personnel. In the write-up that we have, it says that it's for data and technology. Can you just, transparency?
Sure.
Can you lay out what that looks like?
Certainly, Councilor. I'm happy to host you a couple weeks ago. Thank you for coming. Sorry, Ryan Walsh, Director of the Boston Regional Intelligence Center. So several years ago, we worked with the state to kind of make sure that they were comfortable with us kind of shifting the focus of the grant to the earmark to more personnel funding, and they're very comfortable with that. They didn't, for technical reasons, we didn't want to change the language that's in kind of like the budget line there from the state perspective, but they're comfortable with that overall. This was back in probably 2021, and so we've been working under that understanding since that time.
Okay, so basically the language in the grant order is not aligned with the actual purpose for which it's being used.
So the personnel support those goals, I would say, in
Okay.
there, sort of anti-terrorism, anti-gang, those kind of things. So in that way, they're technically not, technology though focused.
And how long has the BRIC been receiving this grant?
Since 2017, I
Okay.
want to say.
How many personnel positions?
Yeah, it's currently funding 8.5 positions.
Okay.
When it's fully staffed out, it will be 8.5 positions.
And where are you now in terms of?
We filled 4.5 currently. The others are in the interview, background check, various stages of that.
And one of the things that we had talked about was how do we move some of the positions that are currently being federally funded in a way that might have more uncertainty, move that towards either, well, we talked about operating, and this is state funding. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Certainly, as our UASC grant funding has started to decline a little bit, the Urban Area Security Initiative grant funding from the federal government has started to decline over the last year or two. We've been taking a strategic look, looking forward as to, how we fund 12 positions under that grant currently, and so we've started kind of the process of thinking about how do we, look to other options for sustainment of some of those moving forward. This might be an option, I would say. Currently, though, we're not really using this money for that purpose.
So there are those 12 positions that are funded via UASC, and there are these 8.5 positions that you're funding via the state grant.
Correct.
And 4.5 of those are filled, and 4 of them are currently not filled.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last year when we had this here, we talked a lot about the problems that were inherent with the gang database, with the federal courts and state courts talking about the point allocation system being erratic and it being discriminatory. We talked about the case where someone's deportation was tied to their existence in the gang database. And we've had conversations about how there have been changes that you've been implementing. Can you talk about the changes to the point system? Can you talk about where you stand with the rules and regulations that are going to be implemented? Where are you in the process of implementing that? Where are you changing the name and the transparency involved in how people are able to remove themselves from the database?
Certainly. So the first round of major changes to the gang database rule, our Department Rule 335 occurred in 2021, and we changed several different factors. Kind of the most significant or the highlights there would be removing the ability to use just field interview reports. Field interviews in the system get 2 points per interaction with another verified gang associate. We previously could use that to build up the 10 points. Now you have to have some other type of verification criteria in there for that. We also decreased, the other major change was previously we had an inactive status, so you could be in the database for 5 years under sort of active status, and then if we reviewed you once every 5 years and you were determined to kind of not be continued to have evidence of gang activity, we would set that person to inactive for an additional 5 years. That second 5-year period has been removed to better align us with our federal intelligence regulations under 28 CFR Part 23. And so now, after 5 years, at least once every 5 years, it's generally much more frequently, we review every individual to ensure that they have continued evidence of gang activity.
Okay. There was a question in terms of people who are able to remove, like how the public is able to know whether they're on the gang database. I know that there were changes coming to that. Where are we there?
Certainly. So there's an additional update to the rule that's in the final stages of review by the commissioner right now. I want to respect his permission, his ability to make final adjustments there, so I don't want to speak to exactly what that's going to look like, but it is in the very final stages of review by the commissioner at this point. There is, in terms of ability for the public to inquire about their presence in any BRIC system or database, there's a redress policy as part of our privacy policy that's posted on the website, lays out the exact procedure there to request that of the department and go through that sort of review process, and that includes the gang database.
And will that be updated? Is that part of, I believe we had talked about?
Yeah, I think currently it says you have to sort of send a letter to the department. It's a little more formalized. We're going to try to add an email address so that we can make it a little easier for folks in that regard.
What's the timeline on that?
It should be weeks, I would say. The commissioner it's in the final review by the commissioner.
Okay. Thank you. I will await for second round, I'm being told. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Councilor Worrell, you have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And Council President Louis Jen has asked a lot of my questions already, but I know one of the things that we talked about last time you was here, Ryan, was the diversity over at the Brick. Can you speak to me about the diversity numbers at the Brick?
Certainly. So I will admit I don't have the exact numbers on hand currently. We can certainly follow up on that. We've made several different attempts, to try to improve the diversity among the analytic team. Our sworn officer staff is quite diverse, I will say. I know that for sure. I will say it's been a very challenging hiring environment. We've had several candidates for these positions drop out, unfortunately, due to the lengthy hiring process that the city has, and other different factors that have come up, including the residency and the pay scale and things like that. So that has been a little bit tough. We continue our outreach efforts through our internship program and through all of our different partners, including working with Dr. Diablo to make sure that the position postings are getting to the right, places in the community where people could be aware of them and kind of apply in that regard. We've also taken steps to make sure that we're removing any intrinsic bias in our interview process. So we are redacting the names of all the applicants before we do our initial review of their resumes, the name and addresses, to make sure that as our staff and my team does that review, we're really starting from that, just looking at the qualifications perspective from that perspective.
Thank you. And through the chair, if I could request just the diversity numbers of the workforce for Brick. And speaking of implicit bias, when it comes to checks and balances to oversee the Brick's activities, especially its gang database, can you talk to me about how are issues like implicit bias being addressed?
So several different things. We have a training requirement for all the analysts where we train everyone for 40 hours of training every year. Some of that training is typically in different types of bias and removing that from our analytic processes for sure. Also, we have a full-time privacy officer that we hired under the UASI grant funding who is reviewing all of our products and databases to ensure we're in compliance with all the department rules, regulations, federal and state, and obviously city ordinances as well. She also reviews all of our products that go out to ensure we're in compliance with that as well as we're in the process of instituting a quarterly audit of the database where we're going to take 10% of the individuals in the database and have our privacy officer kind of review those for compliance and for all the different types of things to make sure we're in compliance with the rule. So all of that is also included in the new rule that will be released.
And then how do you work with divergent programs or prevention programs? And is anyone in on your team that's the point person for divergent programs?
Certainly. So we have the one data analyst who's 50% funded by the SSYI program that Frank just talked about. She is engaged in that sort of process of ensuring that the proposed clients meet the state requirements for the some different things, as well as providing the program staff with kind of overall data and the picture of violent crime in Boston to make sure that the program's clients are being adjusted to the different trends that we're seeing in criminal activity in the city. Additionally, myself and several members of the staff have been engaged on really a daily basis with Dr. Diablo and all of his efforts, meeting with him at least once a week to make sure that he's well informed as to the trends that we're seeing in the city. We're participating in the violence reduction management team process that he has set up there. And then the analysts are also fully aware, particularly for youth, but really any individuals that come across our radar, putting them in for referral to various different places within the department, whether that's the Best Team process or Youth Connect or through Isaac's work or SSYI. We're constantly kind of involved in that ongoing conversation with all those different partners.
And I also know last year there was a push for, as we saw like the rise in hate crimes, are we starting to collect and track and create a database around hate crimes?
So we're certainly aware. We work daily with the Civil Rights Unit out of our Bureau of Investigative Services to make sure that they have a lot of different data tracking processes, and we deconflict our suspicious activity reporting from a counterterrorism perspective with them, and sometimes we'll co-investigate something in that realm to see whether it's more of a bias motivation or whether it is indicative of a counterterrorism issue, and so we're kind of consistently involved in that process with them.
But we don't have like a list of individuals who we are monitoring who might commit a hate crime or have committed hate crime?
I would say not necessarily a list of individuals. We do have data on the number of hate crimes that are occurring in the city and sort of where they are, the types of crime, and the different types of bias. We work with the Civil Rights Unit to make sure that we have that data as current, and that's all reported through the federal process, through NIBRs and different things like that.
I still have time?
So, well, 2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes.
A little
Oh,
less than
nice.
2 minutes.
Awesome. I am a big fan of community policing. I was wondering, I guess there's a question for you, Ryan, and Deputy Cullinane, on how do we use the data to see where we need a dedicated walking beat in a neighborhood, right? We point to a lot of these grants on addressing some of the violent parts of our area. And sometimes I hear more often it's through technology. But when do we see the level of crime the data tells us, instead of technology, right? Let's put a dedicated individual to have that relationship that we're seeking out in some of these programs that we're advocating for in some of these grants, right? We're talking about the targeted youth initiative that we're doing in Franklin Field, and how can we get those relationships in the community opposed to just for a targeted youth an age group? Because I do believe also that it's going to take more than just talking to the youth. It's going to take seeing patterns in the community, understanding the whole family dynamic and the community dynamic to really come up with a comprehensive approach to do prevention. So how does the data influence not only the technology disbursement, but also the manpower disbursement?
So I'll certainly let the superintendent talk about sort of the captain's decision-making process on exactly where they place, those directed patrol resources on a day-to-day basis. I will say from the analytic perspective, we are in communication with the captains and various personnel in the districts really every single day to help them monitor trends in the geography of crime in their jurisdiction. We provide some technology tools to allow them to visualize crime geospatially, as well as we're briefing out the two major departmental meetings, which are basically once a week. There's a deployment meeting, and then the opposing week is CompStat, where the analysts are briefing out those major crime issues to the captains. Most of the time, they of course sort of already know these sort of things, but if we encounter something on the district border or different things that are crossing our administrative boundaries, that's really where the analysts are focused and can come in that.
So my question is more so of not on the captain side, but more so like on the headquarters side, in terms of if we see a concentration of gun violence, are we taking a bird's eye view on how to reallocate resources to specific areas that are experiencing a higher rates of gun violence?
I would say yes, we do, and that goes to some of the things that Ryan was talking about in that CompStat meeting where we all come together. So this is command staff members as well as district captains and other individuals that are on the ground doing the work, and we have really pointed conversations about what we're seeing and what the deployment of resources will look like in terms of incidents that are taking place or a concentration of specific type of incidents that are happening citywide. So yes, we have those specific conversations to make sure that we're addressing it in their ongoing conversations.
All right, so one last request, just to you, the chair. If we could get the data on 911 calls by precinct, firearm arrest by precinct, homicides by precinct, and then staff and allocations by precinct.
Staff and allocation is the last one. Staff allocation.
Staff and allocation by precincts.
Great. Thank you, Counselor. I just have a few follow-up questions, and I'll turn it around for second rounds. My colleagues really asked amazing questions, and I mean, you provided some great responses. I think I just have a couple follow-up questions for Frank DeLuca, if you may. Thank you for being here. You know, you mentioned, you know, the age range for the youth, 17 to 24. This is an ongoing program, so there's no, right, I think if someone enters at the age of 17, it's the expectation they'll stay there for the 4 years, or, from 17 to 24. Are there, like, benchmarks for people to, like, leave the program, or, like, what's the process there?
No, the way to exit the program is either you age out, or you relocate, or you're incarcerated for an extended period of time to beyond the age range, and God forbid you're killed. So it's a continuing process with the individuals. The case managers will identify their needs and try to work with them, with the partnering organizations in the community. And it sometimes also that they will leave the city. That's another way that they leave the program.
And then at the age of 24, after 24, there's no outreach, there's no engagement. Is it?
Well, fortunately, the Boston Public Health Commission has 2 shouldering programs, one before the starting age for SSYI and after. And so it's almost a continuation. So those over the age of 24 can continue to receive services through the Health Commission.
Great, thank you. Our next question is to Director Paris. I think you talked about the 15 youth that have not been selected, that will be selected, correct?
Right.
I think you talked a little bit about, we're going to measure, attitude, success. How is this program actually going to be measured by success? How do you measure attitude? How do you measure, these things that you spoke about?
So we've been working with John Jay School of Criminal Justice out of New York, and they've developed pre- and post surveys that all the kids and all the officers actually take, and then they crunch the data on those to measure changes. And so there are, I think, something like 25 questions on the survey that they use.
All right. Great. Well, thank you. Those are my questions. I will now turn it back over to my colleagues for a second round of questions, starting with Councilor Erin Murphy.
I don't have a second round. I'll wait till the next round of grants that we speak about.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Council President Lijan, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just to talk to, this is a question for Frank DeLuca. It's one that I missed. In the SSYI program, is that working with the Office of Community Safety, like Isaac, Dr. Yablo and his team, in terms of like the identification of the youth between the ages of 17 and 24?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the question.
If you're in identifying the youth between 17 and 24, if you're working with the office, are there interactions with the Office of Community Safety, which is led by Dr. Isaac Yablo?
We've had referrals from Dr. Yablo as well.
Okay.
Certainly.
Thank you. Back to you, Director Walsh. I want to uplift sort of the questions that Councilor Orell was asking with respect to the connection between implicit bias and the diversity of the BRIC being important. Something that I am concerned with, and that I know the members of the community are concerned with last year, and I remain concerned with, is over-identification of folks as gang-affiliated, and the role that implicit bias plays in that. I know that you said that there are changes forthcoming, and some of those changes are encouraging, but in the here and now, as recently as like a month ago, I was talking to someone who is an employee with the city who works in the department who talks about concerns still about that over-identification if someone's cousin was in a gang, or if there's a young kid, especially a black and brown young boy who's having mental health issues and living in a certain neighborhood, being identified as being a gang affiliated. So I would like to see more still in terms of what we're doing to prevent the overlap of people living in poverty, with people being identified as gang members, with the mental health issues that plague communities, Black and brown communities even more. And because there has been, precedent that has been called out by courts, I still want to see us doing more in that area and hear more from the BRIC in terms of how we're addressing the implicit bias. Diversity is one of those, but what is the training that the analysts have to really identify, and not just the analysts, frankly, I'm talking about officers who are doing the beat, who are saying, we think that this person, we're identifying them, they're walking down the street with so-and-so person. I know I'm glad that we're not just relying on FIOs, but there are both qualitative and quantitative things that you're relying on. And so the targeted training that we're working on, given the lack of diversity, to not confuse familiar relationships or neighborhood qualities with gang association.
Certainly. So I think a couple things I would say. First is that it is certainly a multi-layered approach. So that the idea is that we have different rounds of review, different people involved in the review process, so that any one individual's bias is hopefully kind of ameliorated through that sort of a process. So, the officer who maybe suggests someone for entry in the first place is not the one who gets to make the final decision as to whether that person goes in or not, and is not even the person who's going to do that background analysis. Additionally, we have sort of both the quantitative point system and the qualitative analytic process that our team goes through with every person who, we consider because of their behaviors that they're exhibiting. So I think that also, enables us to take into account things like familiar relationship, residence, different factors that the person obviously can't control from a behavioral perspective, and we definitely take that into account. Some of that is direct input from the officers, and so there's sort of a wide-ranging process going on before someone is entered into the database. And then even once they're in, we have sort of the formal 5-year review process. For juveniles under the new rule, we've proposed a 1-year review process, so taking juveniles even more seriously and focusing on concerns about making sure they're not in there for an extended time if they are able to take advantage of services and change their pathway. And so we're definitely kind of sensitive to that as well.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that, especially with respect to juveniles. The case that I was talking about is a young 14-year-old boy, and so
certainly
was very disheartened to hear about that. I look forward to reviewing the rules and regulations. I think that there's they're marching it in the right direction, but still have some reservations and concerns about the transparency that I know that the community and the public are demanding when we're using things that, like the gang database, that I also know is going under its own transformation in terms of what we call it and how we identify it and how we use it. And so I know that those are all things in the future, and so I'm waiting to see what that looks like. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Council President. Councilor Royal, you have the floor.
Sorry about that. Thank you. One of the other advocacies that was a push last year that I am a big fan of is Operation Exit. It was the workforce development program that connected the individuals that were on the gang database to jobs in the trade. I'm still pushing for a reboot of that program, but can you talk to me about any other similar programs that have been stood up to connect at-risk youth or people on the gang database to new opportunities?
So I think Dr. Yablo is probably the best person to speak to the various programs that the city is offering. I know that his office has set up a program similar to Operation Exit for younger individuals who maybe don't qualify for that program, that is kind of almost like a preparatory program for that the first cohort of that ran this past year, and I know they're looking to try to continue that, certainly. So those are two programs. And then I would just say from the BRIC perspective, we certainly participate in the referral process for individuals to all the different types of programs, like I said earlier, the Youth Connect program, certainly SSYI, and then as part of the Violence Reduction Management Team, there's all different service providers that are present at the table in that process as well.
Got it. And when Operation Exit was in existence, where did it live? Was it under BRIC? Was it under the Mayor's Cabinet of Community Safety?
It was never under the BRIC. It may have been a bigger part of BPD at one point, but I honestly don't recall off the top of my head.
We'll get that information for you.
Awesome. And then I guess this is for Frank and SSYI. Knowing that these individuals are involved and they're pretty active, is relocation part of your strategy as well, or is it?
That would be answered by the case management team, I believe, but I know that has happened in a beneficial way.
Right. Yeah. And that's the way I'm thinking, that it would be a benefit to the individual.
For sure.
Thank you. And thank you to this whole panel for all your work and your service to the city of Boston. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Worrell. And just want to thank our first panel. I want to echo Councilor Worrell's remarks. Thank you for your service to our city. Our second panel, so we're going to move on down to the second panel. Our second panel will be on dockets number 1166, docket number 1170, docket number 1177, and docket number 0911. At this time, I'd like to provide an overview of the panelists the committee invited for our second panel, and please be seated at the panel table if you're not already. Starting with Carmen Curry, Deputy Superintendent of Operations Division, Christopher Magnusis, Director of Operations Division, Lieutenant Detective Daniel Duff, Commander of Homicide Unit, and Captain Christopher Hamilton, Commander in 18. Again, for the panelists who are here today, I'd like to ask each of you to just state your name for the record, and then please proceed with opening remarks. I just kindly ask that in order to allow time to councilor questions and discussion, that you please limit your opening remarks to 5 minutes per grant. And I ask you to please remind everyone of the docket number, if you know it, and dollar amount of the grant as you begin your remarks. With that, I'd like to ask our panelists to please proceed with opening remarks. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, councilors. Christopher Markunis, I'm the Director of the Operations Division for the Boston Police Department. The Operations Division is the 911 call and dispatch center at Boston Police Headquarters. I'll be testifying along with my counterpart, Deputy Superintendent Carmen Curry, on dockets 1166, which is the first grant to support the 911 call center at Boston Police Operations. It also, in addition to supporting the call center at Boston Police Operations, a portion of this grant helps support the Boston Fire Department and their fire alarm division over at 59 Fenway, where they dispatch fire apparatus and handle 911 calls associated with the Boston Fire Department. It also supports operations at the Boston Emergency Medical Services, or EMS, call center, which is jointly located at police headquarters with us, 4th floor at One Schroeder Plaza. This first grant is a support and incentive grant. It's awarded by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts State 911 Department. It's in the amount of $4,125,000. It's docket 1166. The second grant that we'll be testifying on is docket 1170. That grant is a training grant for 911 call takers and dispatchers at all three emergency operations centers in the city of Boston as well, the Boston Police 911 call center and dispatch center, the Boston Fire Department, their fire alarm division, and the Boston EMS call center as well at One Schroeder Plaza. That grant is in the amount of $445,865.77.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Detective Daniel Duff, Commander of the Homicide Unit. I'll be speaking about docket number 1177. It's a $10,000 grant given to us by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health for the National Violent Death Reporting System. We meet with them once a year and go over our stats, and they compile data to see trends, and they also, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, ends up sending this data to the Centers for Disease Control so that they can compile data nationally.
Great. Thank you. And Captain.
Good morning. Christopher Hamilton, from the Boston Police Department. I'm going to speak for a moment about a grant from the Mass Executive Office of Public Safety and Security to provide directed patrols within the Fairmount Development neighborhood of Hyde Park. The funds are intended to provide additional police patrols to the Fairmount Housing Development. With these funds, the BPD will provide additional patrols to combat the fear of crime by residents, to monitor, intervene, and suppress violent crime that may otherwise take place in the Fairmount Development when police presence is not available, and to prevent gun-related crime. Over the past number of years, there have been a number of firearm-related incidents in and around development. The funds will provide a deterrent effect over time and will suppress the fear of crime among the residents. BPD will utilize these funds to provide extra two-man patrols on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights from 11:45 p.m. to 03:45 a.m. And the amount of the grant is $10,000, and it covers roughly 5 weeks of those patrols.
Great. Thank you so much, Captain. And thank you again for being here. With that, I'll turn it over to my colleagues in order of arrival, and we'll have 7 minutes per round, or 7 minutes per counselor for this round. So, starting with Counselor Erin Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Just happy that we have money for both the services and the training at 911. I know since I've been here on the council, and I have visited you before, you know, there's been a need to really get more staff, get more morale. Like, could you speak to how you think this money and what others you may need to kind of get to a good place, or do you feel like you're in a better place since when I first have started here?
Thank you, Councilor, and appreciate you coming up to visit. Also, I know Councilor Louis-Jeanne President Louis-Jeanne had come up and visited the Operations Center as well, and I welcome all councilors to come up and visit the 911 Operations Center at headquarters. Yeah, this funding it's an annual grant. It certainly goes to, a lot of it goes to defray the personnel costs and the salaries for the employees up in the Operations Center. You know, our staffing has been down across the board. Currently, we are doing better than last year, I think, when we met. Mm-hmm. But we still have a ways to go. Our 911 call takers, our civilian 911 call takers, we have a 23% vacancy rate right now. So we're still working on it. It was significantly higher prior. You know, unfortunately, when we have a vacancy rate that is high, our employees become more stressed because they're being mandated on overtime, and they're being mandated to work 16-hour shifts, which is very difficult for their family lives and their personal lives. We have tried to address a lot of the stress concerns up there as well. We have the peer support team. We have Deputy Superintendent Curry, through her, has initiated a quiet room up there, which allows the employees to kind of go and take a moment to have a breather and you know, decompress after a tough call, or if they're working an extended shift. But 23% is still, you know, a little too high for 911 call taker vacancy. On the police dispatcher side, it's a little bit higher. That is a smaller group. When we're fully staffed, we would have 40 employees up there. We currently have a vacancy rate of 33% there. We are fortunate, however, we have a few folks starting in the coming weeks that we have interviewed, and one I think is starting in the next couple of weeks. So we are making progress. We also have several call takers in the pipeline right now as we speak. So it's getting better. It's been slow, but it has improved.
Okay, and I'll come visit again soon. And any way we can help advocate, because 33%, that's a lot.
Yeah.
23, even though it's better, it's still not in a good place.
It's not where we need to be.
And as you obviously know, I do want to put on the record how important, you know, that first call, the 911 call takers need to be alert. They need to be in a good headspace. They get a lot of stressful calls. Like most people know, if you ever do have to call 911, it's not a good day, right? And it could be the worst day of your life. So any way, you know, we can support that going forward. Thank you. About the overtime in Fairmont, which I'm happy you have, it's limited, right? It's for 5 weeks, $10,000, and it's great, but it's not going to go that far. How did that get chosen, and are there other grants that other captains are able to pick and kind of highlight or pick a
So this,
neighborhood?
we're very fortunate to have Representative Consalvo work with us. I work with him very closely. He was able to get this grant for us from the Executive Office of Public Safety.
Awesome.
We have had a number of incidents that involve gun violence up there. There was a particular incident that was on Chittick Road. Well, it ended on Chittick Road. It started in development. The firearm was recovered on Chittick Road, which is where the representative, very close to the representative's home. And so he had asked if we could make use of funds if they became available. And that's how that was chosen.
Awesome. Well, you're lucky to have him in your district.
Yes.
No. Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Council President Nguyen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to echo the incredible work that folks are doing under duress in the Operations Center at 911. So I want to thank you for your work. I also know that there was work undergoing to civilianize the operations. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like? I know that that was a big, it's a big win, something that the employees wanted. We think that it's going to help with morale as well. Where do we stand in that process?
So that is something that we are planning for right now. We are looking at the restructuring of the division. Collective bargaining agreement has been settled with the Boston Police Superior Officers Federation, which is the union that represents the current supervisors up there. We are working with the Commissioner's Office and also our Human Resources Division and development job descriptions for those civilian supervisor positions and management positions that will be needed in the Operations Division to fulfill that promise.
Great, thank you. From my visit, I just learned how important that was, and also I know that a lot of the staffing issues were in part because of such backlog or delay with HR. Yeah. Hopefully that's something that's improving, and that's what's been able to get the 33 down to the 23%. It was really, really heartbreaking to hear about people like not being able to take off a day work for their kid's birthday or for themselves or for emergency situations. It just sounds really, really, really tough. And I know that it's something that a lot of officers deal with as well. But there's something about how they spoke about it and about how like there's no other option, and sometimes they're just like working back to back. That was really hard to really take. And so I want to thank you for the work that you're doing, and just know that I know just not myself, the councilors who are here, the councilors who are not here, really hear the advocacy of the 911 operators and the dispatchers, and here to support them in whatever way that we can. So
thank you.
Just wanted to make that clear. And Captain, thank you for being with us. Again,
thank you for having us.
Yes, I know that Rep. Consalvo's advocacy here really made a difference. As a Hyde Park resident, I know that this is an issue that some residents have brought up. Can you talk a little bit about what the overtime is going to look like? Is it going to be, are people going to be signing up for the overtime? Are we going to be forcing officers to overtime?
It's offered, a lot of this is covered by collective bargaining, but it's offered on a volunteer basis. Mm-hmm. And where we have the grant, it's directed just for that, right? So what we did was put a two-person unit up there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, overnight during the busiest time. And if we were not able, if we didn't have enough volunteers, and I apologize, I don't have the data on exactly how many spots we filled on a volunteer basis last year, but we did mandate that overtime be filled. We were fortunate when the money last year worked its way through its process. It was late in the fiscal year, and it actually turned out to be fortunate for us. Isaac and I had a meeting down in Hyde Park about close to the 4th of July and some of the things that have gone on close to the 4th of July in the city over the last few years, and we were able to use that money to direct those patrols in the weekends leading up to the 4th of July last year, and it was very effective for us.
Was it money? Was it this grant?
Yes.
This exact grant. So this is not the first time you've received this grant from the state for this purpose.
Correct. The second time.
Second time. Okay.
It's the first time I've appeared here for it, though.
Oh, well, you're doing a great job, Captain. You know, trust me,
Okay.
it can be a lot. It could be I'll defer to others, but it wasn't a fire pit today, hopefully. So, and yeah, I'm just curious of this as a model, and I know Council Worrell is as well, for when we have areas and pockets in our neighborhoods where there are significant patterns of gun violence, of sort of getting an allocation, right? But I'm just,
So
for full
it's-
transparency, we struggle with like, you know, our overtime costs are way too high.
Well,
and
that's
balancing that
another
with-
benefit of this particular grant, this particular block of money is coming from the state. I'm not sure how that works with the folks on the council, but it doesn't impact our
Yeah, it
overtime
doesn't.
budget, so that kind of helps us a little bit. I know it was asked earlier, I believe Councilor Well asked a question about how do the captains decide where a walking beat goes. So we try to allocate resources. For example, Council, I have a problem, or mostly from community meetings, I've gotten a lot of feedback about dirt bikes and three-wheels and that nature down on American Legion Highway. So
Yep.
out of my budget, I hire every weekend cars down on American Legion Highway just to deal with, we call them, refer to it as the revelers, the dirt bikes, the ATVs and all that thing. And what we do is a walking beat would not be effective on a midnight shift down on American Legion Highway, and we use other resources. So I've gotten from the Bureau of Administration and Technology on the weekends, I don't know if you might not be out that late on the weekends down there, but
I mean, sometimes.
I put barriers up around that entire shopping plaza at 650 American Legion Highway,
It's right by my house.
from McDonald's
Yeah.
all the way down to where Simcoe's used to be, and I can then cover that with one police officer.
And that's
in a
proven
car.
effective.
We have not had a complaint in the last 2 years since I've done that. And then when we had information that came through the intelligence center that they were going to target the plaza over by Stop and Shop on the weekend of the Puerto Rican Festival.
That's the next. No, that's.
Yeah, that's going up
That's
the other end of
Yeah,
American Legion
yeah.
Highway towards High Park Ave. You know, I was able to get vehicles, trucks, and block the entrances over that weekend to keep them out of there. So the walking beat, I try to direct. I have one walking beat that's in Cleary Square. I try to direct it where there's the most foot traffic, where the businesses are, where they can interact with the most of the citizens, right, that live and do their business and work out in Hyde Park. I generally don't address gun violence with a walking beat, and the reason is the walking beat is always a single officer, and it's dangerous to put that single officer out there in an area to address gun violence. So when I get money and I can put 2 officers in a car and put them in a specific area and have visibility and have quick response and deter that violence, that's the way that I address it in my district. I don't want to speak for the other 10 captains, but I think pretty much a walking beat is very difficult to address gun violence with a walking beat. Sorry, I took some of your time to answer the other council's
that's
question.
great. Chair, can I ask one more question? So, as a Hyde Park resident, when you talk about gun violence, are we talking about places like Rossfield, Fairmont? Like, where are we talking about?
So
Where
I
you're
concentrated
dedicated?
on the incidents in Fairmount to come and address this grant today.
We always go.
The places where, that is one of the places where we've had more than one incident of gun violence, and the other area that's been of concern is the lower end, 2 areas, both on the lower end of River Street. Wood Ave is an area of concern from us. And we had a problem property at 565 River Street. We worked, it was in foreclosure, squatters had moved in. It was I have video on my cell phone, I'm glad to show you, it's from the 4th of July over there, where I had 20 police officers down there on the 4th of July, and we were just barely able to contain it. We worked with inspectional services. We worked through the housing court. The property was bought out of foreclosure by a well-known landlord in the city. We worked with him, and we were able to get that property, get the folks out of there that didn't belong there, and they are currently rehabbing the whole building. I'm not sure what he's gonna rent out for that unit, but so that one area of Lower River Street, which 565 River Street is the last house in
Right,
Hyde Park.
I hear-
And then 555, which is right next door, goes
Where
on
my great aunt
B3, but I
lives,
couldn't
yep.
push the line
Yep.
far enough over, but we've addressed that.
That's
So
Mattapan. 555 is, well, 565
Yes.
is also Mattapan as well. 565 River.
it's funny because the house is, the name of the small dead-end street escapes me, but there's a street right there, and the house is on one side of the street, and I don't know why the street is not the dividing line, but either here nor there. So Fairmount and Wood Ave are basically the two areas of most concern to us as far as any gun violence. I'm not saying there hasn't been another incident of gun violence, because we had one at the tow yard up on Hyde Park Ave when someone didn't appreciate their car getting towed, right?
Yeah.
But those are the two areas that are of most concern.
Okay. Thank you very much, Captain, and thank you, Chair, for indulging my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Council Worrell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Captain, and thank you to the 911 callers for all the work, and anything that you guys need, I'm here to definitely support. Captain, I think we're speaking the same language. I do believe in every business district there should be a walk and beat to establish those relationships, not only with the community but with the businesses that are operating in those business districts. Unfortunately, in my district that I represent, gun violence has entered into our business districts. So when you think about Four Corners, the Washington Street area, Bowdoin and Geneva, Ashmont Station, but these are also areas where there's high pedestrian traffic, because we have Ashmont Station, we have the commuter rail in these areas. So I think every business district should have a dedicated walk and beat, but in certain areas, to your point, if there's a concentration of gun violence in those areas, maybe it should be two. So that is something that I am continuously advocating for.
So there are a number of other resources available to address those, and I think we've done a good job. For example, up at Ashmont, I know the transit police have a dedicated unit up there now that works with our units in district, and I don't want to talk for Captain Burns, but work with our units. We also, use members of the Youth Violence Strike Force, use members of the Drug Control Unit in those areas that are business districts where they're seeing gun violence. It's just the walk and beat. The idea of the walk and beat is to walk and not be in a car, right? And not sit down. And that's the way they get the most interaction out of it.
Yep.
I do know and I do agree that that gun violence unfortunately has infiltrated some of the business districts, but I don't want to speak for other captains.
No, I don't want you to
But
speak
there are plenty of tools available to us to address that in the business districts, so people can look. My mom's passed away, but my whole family lives in the city. I live in the city, right? And I don't want my niece or my sister or whatever, going get hit by a stray bullet going to the store shopping, right? Or feel like I have to go to Quincy to do my shopping because it's not safe in Dorchester, right? I don't want that.
Right.
So I do think we address it. Just the walk and beat is kind of unique in a specific purpose.
Right. No, and I hear you. And to your point of helping the public with the fear of crime, sometimes those walk and beats helps address that fear of crime in certain business districts. I don't have any question. I think all of my questions were answered, by Council President Louis Jen. It was basically on the $10,000 and on how that was being used. But again, thank you guys for your service, and I'm here to support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Great. One more question, right? All right, great. Well, I just want to thank our panelists again for being here and for answering our questions and for the service that you provide to our city. I have checked with central staff, and they have informed me that there's no one signed up for public testimony, so we will go through that. I just want to thank our panelists again, members of the public, and other attendees, and my colleagues for your participation in today's hearing. This hearing on dockets number 0911, 1166, 1168, 1170, 1175, 1177, 1286, and 1432 is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.